Secret Satan, Chapter 12. The best bit of a hangover is the last bit. I'm being technical here. Obviously, the very best bit is when it isn't a hangover anymore, but while it is a hangover, the best bit, the bit that is an active pleasure in itself, is the last active bit. You have a supper of something heavy and salty and comforting, let's say lasagna, because that's what I had. You watch something easy and entertaining and comforting, like an episode of Poker Face, which is also what I did. And finally, you can climb, bone-tired, into your bed, your glorious, welcoming bed, and go to sleep. That bit, that's the best bit. Falling asleep, knowing that when you wake up, your hangover will be over. Except I'm now an old man, and my hangovers last for days. Which meant it was Monday before I could think properly. And what I was thinking about on Monday morning was work. Not my actual work, obviously. Who wants to think about that? But work as a more general concept. Work and the people we do it with. It's a strange thing, work. Capitalism being what it is, work is a thing most of us have to do, not a thing that we want to do. We dream of doing something else, even as we identify ourselves and others by the thing we don't want to do. What do you do? We ask strangers. It's really more interesting than it sounds, we tell them, when they ask the same thing of us, even though it really isn't. Our jobs define who we are to the world, and the world that we then live in, how we spend a third of our time, and the people we spend it with. I spend half of my waking hours shut in an airless room with a group of strangers. None of us knew each other before we entered the room. Few of us would probably want to know each other outside of it. We have been forced together by happenstance. A group of people with whom the only thing I have in common is working on a series of largely pointless tasks that none of us actually wants to do. But that simple proximity, that shared futility and tedium, creates a shared identity. These are my colleagues, my workmates, my team. I know their working methods, their individual idiosyncrasies, their habits and terrible tastes. I know them. Don't I? After all, the whole point of the team is that the members of it are different, isn't it? We aren't friends or family. We aren't a small-town theatre troupe putting together a show in a small barn. We aren't a gaggle of train spotters clustered down one end of the platform hoping for a sighting of a rare 70s British Railways locomotive. We're a bunch of putative professionals, there for the sole purpose of producing internal communications for a vast and unknowable multinational. We have defined jobs, and they're supposed to be contrasting and complementary, design and development, managers and team members. We're the boring and pointless equivalent of the Mission Impossible team, but without all the running and jumping. We're like the gang of old criminals getting together for one last heist, or Robin Hood's merry men. The leader and the lieutenant, the funny one and the brainy one, the one who keeps everyone happy and the one who does all the actual work. We have our roles, we play our parts. Take Ned Fine, our finicky, painstaking, infuriatingly perfectionist lead designer, who, outside of the office, was indulging in an emotionally messy affair with Edie Letterby. Or take our ultra-competent, stable and together manager, Ali Shepherd, who spent her weekends getting drunk and taking cocaine with reprobates like, well, me. Had I known them, really, before last week? Take the late Tony Flint. What did I know about him? Shirt untucked, hair unbrushed, tea black, breakfast full. Voice penetrating, opinions unpleasant. But what did that amount to? He was a large, loud presence in my peripheral vision, a presence that frequently got on my nerves, but that could also be darkly funny. A man who could be extremely rude, but usually by being extremely horrifyingly accurate in his assessment of someone else's character and proclivities. A man who was not afraid to share his thoughts with the world, which was a shame because his thoughts appeared to be largely not fit for sharing. But was that actually him? Or was that just the role he played in this team? Was the real Tony Flint, outside of the office, more light-hearted, more open, more generous, a nicer person? Or was he, as I was beginning to suspect, actually, alarmingly, a far worse person than he appeared? Fortunately, there was a way I could find out. One of the opinions that Tony felt free to share was on password security. Company IT insisted that we change our passwords regularly. which annoyed everyone and also insisted that we couldn't reuse passwords, but also that we could not write them down. This annoyed Tony particularly. "This is an office. It's a locked office," he said loudly to no one in particular. "I am locked in here with you. There are security guards downstairs, and I know because they hassle me every morning. If there is someone reading a note I have on my desk, we have bigger problems than if someone is reading whatever damn fool note Ali has appended to the Kanban board." I wouldn't necessarily have had Tony down as a man of his word unless it was a swear word, but there it was, stuck on the side of his monitor on a yellow post-it note. Boat drinks 69. I wondered for a moment whether he had added the 69 because he was a prat, or because this was the 69th time he had updated that password. Possibly both. Definitely not worth the time thinking about. Mary Mead Marple is, in theory, a fluid workspace, a company that treasures the kind of innovation and free-flowing creativity that comes from happy accidents, from people from all different departments, mixing and communicating by sharing space and hot desking. In practice, it is a place where people keep themselves to themselves, along with their gonks, family pictures, and piles of pointless printouts. We're able to log into our account from any machine in the building. We could just wander up, take someone else's seat, start asking complete strangers what they're doing, just like perfectly normal people do. Yet another piece of evidence that human resources have never met any actual humans. But what this does mean is that I could log into Tony's account from my own machine, and it would look to a casual observer like I was, unaccountably, just doing my own work. So instead of hot desking in a dead man's seat that absolutely no one else wanted to sit in, I could sit at my own desk with my own gonks and piles of paper and discover that Tony Flint was, in reality, just as bad as I had started to fear.